Welcome back to Blue Collar Speed and Repair. This is the Boss Lady 63 Ford 300 or Galaxie. The more we look into it, I'm pretty sure it's a Galaxie 500 D-trim to a Ford 300, which is the base model. Did some work on this car, a little bit of backstory. We bought this out of a basement locally. The gentleman had passed away, and we made a deal with the wife, a very nice lady, and ended up finishing it. Paint was already done. A lot of the wiring was not finished. We did wheels and tires. We did brakes. We finished the interior, some odds and ends, that kind of stuff. Last video we did on this, we did a GM alternator conversion that seemed to work really, really well. The generator or the voltage regulator, I don't remember, was going bad, and it kind of needed an upgrade anyway. In preparation for doing we want to add a radio with Bluetooth at some point. Excuse me, so she can jam out getting groceries, and it'll probably get an aftermarket AC system, stuff like that, so we can cruise in it and whatnot. So this video, we're doing a wiring harness to upgrade, also part of the upgrade, I should say, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, so it's worth noting that there's not really any problem with the wiring in this car, other than it's, what, 62 years old now. Mainly, we just want to do this for upgrading purposes. The fuse block in this, I'll try to put a picture up here somewhere, is on the headlight switch, and there's only 5 fuses, and they're the old style glass fuses, and it's difficult to add things like a B+ for like an aftermarket radio or a later model radio that would require memory, or adding on for air conditioning, like we said, or we don't have any, but electric fans or an electric fuel pump or something like that. You end up with a disaster under the dash. If you watch the harness video we did on the VUC, the van, and look at what we pulled out of that thing. Holy cow, what a mess that was. So we're going to pull all this out, all new fresh wiring, because why not? And we decided to go with easy wiring. And that's simply because the painless one that we had used before was out of stock. And this was actually a little cheaper. So it does generally use GM color codes, but it does have information in here for wiring into, like, for charging systems, which we don't have. Diagrams for tail sections and front section and what needs to go to what and which goes to where and all that good stuff. So point is, we should be able to figure this out. So I guess first step is start ripping out the old stuff and kind of seeing where to go from there. The mistake I made with the VUC video was I ripped out everything. And these systems don't come with like wiring that goes from like the wiper switch to the wiper motor. It comes with the power wire to the wiper switch, but not the other stuff. Same with stuff like heaters and stuff. You'll have power to a heater, but not any existing heater wiring, if that makes sense. This is a, I believe, is this 21 circuit? This is a 21 circuit, so it does have stuff that we won't need. Such as like backup lights and cruise. We don't have backup lights or cruise. We don't have power window. We don't have an electric fuel pump. We don't have an electric fan. But if we decide to add anything, we can. And there are extra terminals in here. Some of these are ignition source and some of them are B+ source, so you can add stuff too if you'd like. So get some dikes and start cutting.
try and keep it in one piece.
Well, we're gonna have to chop it up a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not basically good. Well, that worked.
Well, I mean, it's up to you how far you want to go. It's your car. But there is wiring in here for voltage regulator. We don't have any more. How we're going to wire in headlights, since this kit only came with 2 headlight connectors, but this obviously has 4 headlights. So there is a little bit of what's the word? Puzzle, I guess. You got to puzzle, figure some stuff out, and plan ahead. Like this has 2 rectangle style connectors that go through the firewall, and we're just gonna have a bundle of wire coming through, so we got to figure out how to do something with that. You've done basically nothing yet. What are we doing here?
I'm trying to get these out without breaking them.
Good luck with that. I suppose I'll disconnect the battery. That's probably a good start. That's another thing we got to figure out too. So, like this old car, they use these bullet style connectors. I obviously don't have anything like that. So I don't know if we're gonna have to try to find hardware to make this work, or may have to cut the ends off and connect into them. We'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. For now, we're just going to disconnect some stuff. Try to not butcher it any more than we have to. See how it goes. Alright, so I'm not sure how much to butcher here.
So this seems to all be headlight.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to cut them here. And then,
I got any flashlights?
look at that. Remember when I said we probably don't need this on the lift?
No.
We might.
Everything. Well, look at all the wires.
And now it's dark because you took my light. Okay, this should come out now.
No way.
Sure.
Well, that was minimal wiring, I feel like. And again, this car doesn't have a lot of power or anything. So
Yeah.
that's okay.
So that's that. That's that. Okay.
That was quick. So this can come out too, right? The voltage regulator?
Yeah. Horn relay.
Oh.
So that's pretty much all there is to the engine harness. Not much. Obviously, there's voltage regulator and all that stuff that we took out because it's got a GM alternator. It's got a starter solenoid and a coil. Basically, is it. And then that's just the headlight harness. So that's probably pretty much it for up here. We need to take some interior apart, which is not a good time. Getting that back seat out, there's not a lot of room. We're going to pull the carpet back because the taillight harness runs under the carpet. And we got to figure out what to take out under the dash. Okay. Probably need to pull that sill plate out. Your gun's still back there? I think this kick panel has come out too. Okay. I don't remember how this was connected. A couple more bullet connectors. All right. So I'm going to have to try to save that. So, door switch for dome light has bullet connectors as well. So we'll have to splice into those apparently. And then as far as dash stuff goes, I'm going to have to stick my head up underneath here and figure this out. All right. Which one's headlight? That one. How does that come out of there? Should be a release button somewhere. We're going to have to pull this instrument cluster out. Do all kinds of stuff. Here goes nothing. All right, this is the combo headlight switch fuse block. You can see there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fuses. So you can see how adding circuits to this would be a pain and how quickly it would turn into a bowl of spaghetti under the dash, I guess you could say. So again, part of the reason we're getting rid of this, or most of the reason really, is so we can add to and get rid of the old glass style fuses. They're not as
readily available.
Reliable is the word I was looking for.
That could be a weapon. Do you want to take out the instrument cluster?
Yeah. All right, so we're going to pop the instrument cluster out and dig out some more wiring, dash wiring. Hopefully be ready to put in new stuff soon. All right, dash and rear harness out. Kind of got this sort of laid out. We left some of this stuff in place, so I believe this harness goes over to the clock, I believe. Is that what we decided? I don't remember. This is obviously the wiper, so we'll have to figure that out. This should have the heater control wiring and whatnot in it. We'll have to figure out the dash stuff probably last. So the idea is hopefully, typically you'd mount your fuse block here. Typically it's mounted on the driver's side of the firewall, but we have a air vent. I don't know how well that shows up. Maybe from this side. We got a big air vent in the way. So we're going to have to go to, get that out of my way. We're going to have to go to this side. Now, I don't know if you can see there's a bolt there that goes through the firewall, and I believe all that does is holds the firewall insulation on. So I think we're going to use that for this bolt hole. Put a longer bolt in, obviously, and then we'll have to mark and drill a secondary hole. Can you take this? All this wiring did come out the bottom of the fuse block. I did twist it off to the side, and then doing that, I should have just enough slack to reach our ignition switch, which is mounted here. So let me get that bolt out, see if I can find some hardware that's long enough to go all the way through here. See if we can get this mounted, which is first step, obviously, before we can run any wires, really. Plan-ish? Ish. All right, got some bolts here. Hopefully they're long enough. Now I gotta fish this up in here. Somehow get everything fished through that hole. I don't think this bolt's long enough. Oh, where is it? It went through there.
Maybe it's not sure it's on the other side.
No, there's a hole on the other side. Just gotta get it lined up right. I think that's it.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. Oh, how did I get that wedged in there? And I can't. Yeah. You want to go on the outside and see if you can see it? Here. Take these with you. You don't see, do you know the, no? Up, down, left, right? It doesn't push through. That's the problem. All right, hang on a sec. Okay. So now, drill a hole a little bit big.
They're gonna be right in your way.
Yeah, usually are though. I don't know if there's a way to really see. Since I can't really see. Okay.
Am I going back out?
Yes, please.
I need the nut and the washer.
One nut, one washer. And I had a wrench. I don't know what to do with it. All right, other one. Okay. Mounted. I think that should be good. Come here. Alright, so ignition switch mounts right here. So that'll be easy. This is all turn signal. That's a dimmer switch. That might have to extend a bit. That's the only downside. I don't think there's a way to get it over farther. And then one of these will go down under the carpet. We'll probably loop it over the column and down this side again. And the other one goes out to the firewall, which we still got to figure out. Okay?
Yep.
And then a whole bunch of connections. That's going to be exciting. We do have some really nice loom that we're going to put on it too. At least through the engine compartment. So it'll be nice and clean. All right. Let me see if we can figure out how to route this stuff, and then we'll start routing, I guess. Okay, with the fuse block all mounted, it's time to kind of start sorting this stuff and putting it in areas they go. One obviously goes out to the headlights and engine and whatnot to the front of the car. One's going to go to the back of the car, so we got to run it under the carpet like the other one. The other one's for the dash. As far as the engine compartment goes, it did come with one grommet. So I took one of our rectangle holes that the original wiring harness came through. Just ran a Christmas tree bit through it. Open it up a little bit, put a grommet in it. We'll have to do some kind of little block off plate or something to close the other hole up. So I believe, what was it? This one is the engine harness. I think I mentioned before that these harnesses come with a lot of extra stuff that we're not going to use. Stuff like electric fan. This car doesn't have an electric fan, obviously. The rear harness has like the electric fuel pump. I mean, we don't have an electric fuel pump. Now you can pull all these wires out and pull them out of the fuse block and all that stuff. And it would honestly be a couple hours probably of disassembling that and disassembling the harnesses and all that. I'm going to leave them. I think we're just going to tie them off and in case we want to use them later. There's stuff like oil pressure, temp sender, but we have the mechanical gauges. But we're going to run them out there and have them under the dash and under the hood. In case we want to change that later, we can. So I'm going to grab a bunch of zip ties, little ones, kind of loom this stuff together temporarily so we can get it through the firewall without having to do it one wire at a time or bunching up into a mess. And same with those, and we'll just kind of get them where they need to go, hopefully. All right, I think we got everything kind of separated out, at least to their general location. Ignition switch, those are all for turn signals, and dimmer switch. This will all be dash wiring. Back here I kind of separated out. These wires are what we're going to use for actually for the car. So that's like sending unit. White is dome light, which actually connects right up in here. This is all stuff we're not going to use. Again, we don't have an electric fuel pump. We don't have, a couple of these are backup lights. We don't have backup lights. I think the orange is like a third brake light. And an electric fuel pump we don't have. Same within here. Those big yellow wires are for power windows, which we obviously don't have. And there's several other accessories and stuff that we're not going to use. Up here, we kind of separated as well. So we have, these will go up to our headlights. These are not going to be used. These are power antenna. What else was in this? AC compressor, stuff like that we're going to leave. We'll just coil them up and hide them somewhere for now. These are all going to go to battery and starter solenoid. Ignition and tack which hooks to the negative side of the coil, which we don't have attached currently, but we might someday. So again, we will run it. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how we want to run this and how we want to make it look, right? So I think like these wires that went to the solenoid and to the battery ran along the top of the firewall. I think we're going to do the same thing. These two will drop down out of there and come along the engine valley to the coil. The headline harness obviously will just run straight up to the front of the car. We'll figure that stuff out. We want to get a rough idea of where everything's going, and then we're going to loom all this stuff so it's nice and neat, hopefully. So I guess we'll take a few minutes to kind of figure that out. We'll loosely put everything in order, figure out loom sizes and whatnot. We do have a couple different sizes. And figure this out. Where are we going to hide these extra wires?
I mean, we could just run them in the loom and cut them off later.
I mean, realistically, the best place to do it? Well,
Tuck them back.
well, we have like, what all do we have here? AC compressor. I don't know if we do a vintage air or something like that. I'm not sure which side of the engine it mounts on. It could run with the ignition wires.
Power antenna.
Power antenna we're definitely not using.
There's a temp one in here that we already
Temp
made.
and oil. Again, we could run those with the ignition wires and just fold them back on the harness.
Yeah, power antenna. There's one more. Choke.
No, electric choke. So yeah, realistically, all these could run with the ignition wires, and then we can just loop them back into the harness and leave them long tucked back. We'll probably do that
Like zip time together.
because they're all going to go that direction if we end up using them, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a few minutes, kind of get these semi-organized and figure out some loom. All right, kind of the way I like to do this when running loom is we have, I'm gonna grab a piece of it. I hate that stupid plastic stuff. Well, this is kind of plastic, but this is the like braided split loom. And then I like to use heat shrink. You can use tape. All this stuff is just from Amazon. So what I'm gonna do is put a bigger piece of loom where it goes through the firewall. And then what we'll do is each line that comes into that will tuck under a big piece of heat shrink. And then we'll heat shrink it all together so it'll come out of the heat shrink and split into separate looms, if that makes sense. I'll kind of show you that in a minute. But, now it comes to getting all these separate harnesses through said heat shrink. This is where it's time consuming, very time consuming, but the end result is so much nicer than tape or whatever.
There's another loose wire here somewhere.
And an extra set of hands helps always too. Get yourself an assistant. Or a boss in my case. all the loom on and everything kind of in order, you can see how much cleaner this looks with the heat shrink in this style. Obviously, we gotta do some tidying up. These clips are all broken. We might have to figure out something different for actually tying things up. But these wires ran down to the coil. So we got ignition wire and a tack wire. Again, we don't have a tack, but we'll go ahead and hook it up. Everything else is folded back into the harness, so we have it like electrochoke if we need it later or something like that. We can run it. Headlights are just kind of hanging out up here for now until we get to those connections. As far as battery and starter solenoid, this came with a chintzy little fusible link that you're supposed to put in this big red wire. And I don't want to use this. I want the actual fuse style and I want to mount it here, but I don't have one. It came in the painless kit and the American Auto Wire kit that I put in my old C10, the wrecked one. So I'll probably be running one here. So for now, I'm going to run these wires a little bit long and just connect them direct to battery, which is a terrible idea. Don't do that. We'll have to get one ordered and get this taken care of as soon as possible, because these are essentially,
Excuse me.
bless you, essentially direct from battery, and then you have your hot wire going into the car. So if any of this wiring was to short between here and the fuse block, there's nothing protecting it. So that's what that fusible link is designed to do. So we'll run, again, fusible link here, and the only thing that will be unprotected would be from here to essentially here, and then direct to the battery. So for now, like I said, we're gonna run those a little long. Purple wire is our starter signal. It's gonna go from the ignition switch. It's gonna go right to our starter solenoid. White wire is a alternator exciter wire, which we don't need with this style alternator. So again, we'll cut this off and we'll tuck it back. And then we'll move on to probably headlights, and that'll finish up the front part of the car. Okay, starter solenoid connections are made. One of these big red wires should be, I believe, goes to the ignition switch. The other one powers the fuse block. Again, we'll run a like a mega fuse or a big fusible link in here to protect that. We just don't have it yet. I'm going to order one. Went ahead and hooked up the ignition coil, which leaves just headlights out here. Now I think we're going to do this not necessarily the wrong way, but kind of the cheating way. So essentially, that's going to fall here. Essentially, we have the headlights right here. Is that showing anything? I believe green is low beam and red is high beam. I'll double check. And then down here goes to the park light that's in the bumper. That would be park light and turn signal. So I think we're going to cut these wires back and just hook into the existing wiring. The kit came with two headlight connectors, but obviously we have four. So there's really no point in pulling all this apart and changing that. We'll leave the one connector. So this, from the connector on both of these, will be factory wiring essentially. So we're gonna have to cut this out. I think there's a horn wire in here too. We already pulled the horns out. They were mounted here. And wire in some headlights. Left low beam. And then also from the factory, obviously it's two wires into one, so we can run one wire in for a low beam, cut off this extra, hook it to the other one, and run it to the other side. Same with the high beam, same with park light. So let's get this routed and make some connections, and essentially we should have headlights after we figure out a headlight switch. Okay, under the hood is done. So nice and clean, comes out of the firewall. Headlights come up here. Engine and starter, solenoid and all that run to that side. Wires are nice and hidden. You don't really notice them unless you're looking for them, which is what I really like about this Loom stuff. We did opt for to run headlight relays. So essentially in old cars, the stupid light. Essentially in old cars, the lights go through the fuse block and then through the headlight switch to the lights. So there's some resistance in the wiring there. There's some potential for dimmer lights. So relay, basically those light wires that come from the headlight switch are essentially turning on the relay, and the headlights are getting power directly from the battery now through that green wire. I didn't have any other heavier gauge wire except for green. Doesn't matter, I'm going to loom it eventually. Well, actually real soon. And I left it long and just looped it back because it's going to go after that fusible link I want to put in, so it's protected. So that's all done. We did run them neatly over here and then down the front of the core support over to this headlights. Obviously ignitions, all that stuff's done. And we are going to knock out the taillights real quick, which is basically more of the same. Again, this is all the stuff that we're not using. Fuel pump, backup lights, stuff like that, which this car doesn't have. So we will tie it up and tuck it in behind the seat somewhere, loom it up or tie it up really nice so it can't touch anything. These are the wires we're using. So fuel sending unit, which comes through the floor right there. Tail light, left, right, turn signal. Dome light goes right behind that hinge. So we'll wire that stuff in real quick. That's just more of the same. You probably don't need to sit through that again. And then we'll get on to the interior, but that'll be another day. I have to work tomorrow, the next couple days, so we're gonna knock this out real quick and call it for the night, I think, and we'll see you guys in a few days. Okay, we're back. It's a few days later. It's actually Father's Day today. Happy Father's Day to you dads out there. Also to your moms, to you moms, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, whoever's playing a dual role. You deserve recognition as well. Engine compartment was all done the other day. We did button up the trunk, which was kind of more of the same. Ran our wires neatly under the edge, across the back. We don't currently have a license plate light, but we have a wire ran for it. And then the other side as well. So also got the speaker wires ran under the carpet, and this would be our fuel sending unit. We're not sure how we're going to tie this down yet. Probably going to end up with some kind of a mat or a rug or something in here at some point. So before we jump into figuring out this mess, I did get a mega fuse, and I did put it in place already. So that's 125 amp. And again, the whole point of this is to protect our main power wires. So we're going to come from the battery to the solenoid, off the solenoid to a fuse. So the whole point is, if this big power wire was to short somewhere, it'll be protected. There was already a hole here, so that kind of dictated where we put this. A couple screws. I'm going to cut these red wires, split them off so they go through the fuse, and really it's that simple. Same with this green wire. We ran that for our headlight relays. We need to loom that real quick, and we'll run it up, and it'll be after the fuse as well. Okay. These are just some little eyelets from Amazon. A little better than those other ones for stuff like this. You get the heat gun out? No, right next to me like usual. Okay. Those sit there temporarily. Do we want to run a piece of heat shrink down? Probably, to make this a little neater, which means I got to take this off. Okay, so what should have took 10 minutes took an hour. I did use the wrong size heat shrink there because I forgot to put it over the end first, or put it on before I put the end on. But still, I think it turned out pretty good. So now we're going to have to turn our attention to that mess. All right, everything external is done, I believe, so we're going to start working on internal stuff. I want to start with the ignition switch. So this is universal, but it uses GM type stuff. So it would come with connectors for GM, which we obviously don't have. But it should be as simple as hooking up a few wires. Red's going to be B plus N. That's one of the red wires that's now hooked to the fuse out there. Purple is our starter. Pink is coil ignition, and then brown is the ignition signal that goes into the fuse block. And then orange here is accessory. Black is another B plus N. We don't need two, so I'll probably just cut it off with this heat shrink. And then we need those 5 wires to hook to these 4 wires. Then potentially we should have ignition, which means we could test to make sure like our headlights and stuff are working and all that. All right, so yellow. I already looked this diagram up, and I did use a ohm meter to verify. Yellow's hot in. Red with green is ignition. Red with blue is our starter signal. And then this wire on the stud, which I believe is either brown with green or black with green. It's hard to tell. So oversprayed and everything. That's our accessory wire. So this light is going to piss me off. I already know it.
Do you want me to get one of those magnet ones?
No, I want to hit my head on it 6 or 8 more times.
Okay. The heat gun's on the floor just outside the door.
That's a long ways away. If you do wiring, I wouldn't even say a lot of wiring, but if you do wiring some, invest in a good set of crimpers. The ones that are like the strippers and crimpers and everything built in together, like these ones, they don't do as good of a job, in my opinion. That being said, a good set of wire strippers are handy as well. Alright, so then we need to take pink and brown that I lost now. Put those together. some vacuuming when we're done because I'm just dumping everything everywhere. I just realized I said we could test the headlights, but there's no headlight switch or anything hooked up.
Yeah.
So basically we test the starter and ignition, and that's it.
Neat.
Of course I don't know where the key is or anything, but
Gotcha.
at minimum we should have key on, and we should have starter, but we don't have the battery hooked up.
Yeah.
So we should do that, test it real quick, see if anything catches on fire.
And then disconnect it?
And then disconnect it.
Okay. You want me to hook it up?
Yeah, just touch it for a second.
Gotcha, bolt connector. Okay.
Alright, ignition switch is all in. I've kind of been sorting this stuff out a little bit. This is headlight switch stuff, which is what we're going to do next. This stuff I don't remember now.
Radio and antenna.
Oh yeah, so the two reds are radio, ignition, and memory. Purple's power antenna, which we obviously aren't going to use, but we'll run it over there anyway. Cigarette lighter, which we'll run over and power cigarette lighter, and we'll daisy chain off and try to power the clock that I'm pretty sure doesn't work. And this one was what? Wiper. So we'll have to power in the wiper switch. This is, I believe, brake switch in and out, heater control, or it says heat and AC, so we'll use that to power our where the heater switch is.
Right there.
The fan switch. I'm lost. These ones are all gauges. So power into the gauges, fuel sending unit, stuff like that. Oil and temp sensor that we are not using, but this stuff is all stuff we are definitely not using. So we have cruise control power. Obviously we don't have cruise control. Backup lights we don't have on this car. What else we got? Fan power. So that would be ignition source to a relay for an electric fan. AC compressor, obviously we don't have. The two yellow ones are kind of important. One are for door locks, which would have power all the time, and one for power windows, which would have power anytime the ignition switch is on. So we'll keep these, all these will be tucked back here and tied off, but we have a fused door lock 20 amp circuit and a fused power window 20 amp circuit. So we essentially have a B plus and ignition ground wire, or excuse me, B plus and ignition power wire ran currently to power and accessory. It's what I'm trying to get at, but my brain's not working. It's Father's Day. I'm not supposed to be doing this stuff, but here I am. Okay, headlight switch. I had to look up a schematic because remember again the fuse block was attached to this. I think I have it figured out. We're gonna have to make some changes. We're gonna have to add some stuff. But park, tail, red is power in to the headlight switch, and blue is power out to the dimmer switch to give you high or low beam. So, all that being said, I believe these two both need power. This one is going to be our park lights, so we'll hook both of those park light wires to that. That is our headlight out. This is going to be our dome light circuit, which that we'll have to get into. This provides a power, and we need it to provide a ground, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but we're going to use a relay. And this one was illumination. So this one, see the spring back here is basically a resistance value. So you can dim and brighten your dash lights. That stuff is not in this harness at all. So we'll have to come off of here with a wire, run it into our gauges. There's a bulb behind these switches. There's a bulb behind here. I believe there's a bulb in the ashtray. There's should be a light behind there, and there's a light behind the glove box. So we'll have to run our own circuit off of this and daisy chain it across. So, hooking up wires. My understanding is both of these that are perpendicular, so the two flats that are laying this direction, both need power. So we're gonna have to go into one and just daisy chain it to the other. Pretty simple. And I'm probably gonna cut these back just a little ways. We do still have the battery disconnected, correct?
Yep.
So.
You need the red.
I need the red that I just tossed out here, right? I'll find it in a sec. So again, hooking two wires together into one terminal, not the best way to do it, but it's the way it's going to have to work. I am definitely against Scotch locks. The worst thing you could possibly do to your wiring, in my opinion. Alright, so then we'll come off of this one. Now I can get rid of that. So for all of these ones, I'm using the non-heat shrink terminals because it's not really necessary inside the car. Alright. Power in. And in. And then we got headlights out. Again, that'll power our dimmer switch, which then will turn on the relays that we added earlier.
In your pocket.
In my pocket. Okay. So essentially we should have park lights, but not headlights because the dimmer switch isn't hooked up. Unfortunately, mounting the fuse block on this side of the column, the dimmer switch wire doesn't actually reach. So we're going to have to, unfortunately, extend those. Alright, let me grab some wire. We'll figure out this dome circuit and the illumination circuit. Alright, headlight switch wiring's all done. I usually use white for illumination. I was out of white, so we're using gray. And again, that'll just daisy chain in. We'll feed our instrument cluster lights. It'll feed our lights behind our clock and heater controls and that kind of stuff. And as well as our bulbs down here for aftermarket gauges. As far as the dome light, so the way this worked originally was the dome light would be grounded through the body, like through the screws where it screws in. And the door switches actually had power running through them. So you have one of those switches?
Yeah.
So that would be an open circuit, as in door closed. And when you open the door, the switch comes out and creates a connection. And the case of this car would have been power, which would have sent power to the dome light. Excuse me, my brain all over the place. All right. So what that means is when you turn your headlight switch all the way to the left, if you don't know this, there's a click, and that turns the dome light on. Well, in this case, it provides power. The way this harness works is the dome light is powered all the time, and the door switches and everything are going to control the ground, right? So I need this that provides power to instead provide a ground. And I'm going to do that with a simple relay. So what we're going to do, essentially a relay has a little coil in it. That's terrible, I know. And the other side is a switch. So when you provide power and ground on the coil side, it closes this switch. So we're going to put a ground on that for the coil side, one will be grounded all the time as well. And what we're going to do is use this wire to create power. So this is going to come from our headlight switch. So power on one side, ground on the other will close our switch. This ground wire will then go to our dome light. This will also tee in to our other switches, so our door switches, if that makes any kind of sense. I have it in my head, and I'll be honest, I'm not very good at explaining things.
It's easier to do than to explain.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've done this kind of stuff enough. I know how a relay works, and if you know how a relay works, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, that's a little harder to catch on. It's gonna work. That's all that matters, or it's gonna burn to the ground.
I don't like the second answer.
You don't like that one? All right.
No. Okay.
Well, we'll try not to.
But how about the glove box? Is that the same idea? Because it only comes on when it's open.
So that has a switch in it as well. So if you turn the camera that way.
Oh.
So that switch is actually part of the light that I'm not sure where it is, but there's a switch that goes in here. That will have to be a power side, unfortunately.
Oh. Okay.
Unless we ran a separate relay only for the glove box. But that's going to be on the illumination side, not the dome light side.
Okay. I just didn't know how that worked since it's...
Well, essentially this is going to go across. So our gray wire from illumination, so again, a resistance value, so you can dim and brighten your lights, will go across. It'll plug in. We'll have to build a little sub harness for our cluster. It'll go into, there's actually a light here somewhere. Maybe I took it out.
I think that's the one I asked you about. It's on the floor.
That lights up this stuff, which doesn't light up very well. And then again, we'll attach to the light there. It'll attach to the light in the ashtray. It'll attach to the light in the clock, and then again to the glove box. So we're just going to daisy chain that one across. In fact, I think the harness that we cut originally has those wires in it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to figure out what's what and just tie into it, hopefully.
And then do we just run our ground from that door switch to this door switch to power both of them?
Yeah, again, that door switch wire from that side should be here.
Okay.
So we should be able to, we ran a ground wire up from our dome light. So it'll probably pick up that door switch, come out of here, go to the relay, and the relay will go across to the other one.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Got all that? I don't.
I'm just supervising because...
Me too. Okay. Headlight switch is all hooked up. I mounted the relay tucked in nice over here. You can see that the dome light is actually on. If you hit that switch, and I hit the switch on this side, simulating closing the doors essentially. They are off, and then they come on with headlight switch or either door switch. Again, those door switches ran ran power, and we're changing it to ground. So we did have to take the other wire and ground it behind that, well, where the kick panel goes over there. Did jump ahead a little bit. Blue wire we wired in, that's our wiper switch. Wiper power goes into our wiper switch. And there's an orange wire here connected to a black, that's our heat and AC. And these are grounds for both of those. So if you come back for a second. So if I ground these, find a spot under the dash here. I gotta run a ground still, but power on. We have heater and we have wipers. I did determine there's a bunch of these blue wires with a red stripe. That runs all of our illumination stuff. So when we get to the instrument cluster, which is next, we'll have to wire in those lights as well as our aftermarket lights, aftermarket gauge lights. We'll have to hook all this stuff together, and that will all run off of our headlight switch. Did run radio wires over, just tucked them in for now. And then our extra wires, I looped together and taped up the ends. Power windows, power locks, all that stuff we're not using. They're tucked over here nice out of the way. And we'll use those as we need them. So all that's left is, this is all our turn signal wiring and horn. We'll have to figure that out. And then this is all of our gauge cluster. Real quick, 2 connectors on here we can just hook to our brake light switch. That's pretty straightforward. And we'll be done.
Just put it back together.
So what do you want next? Probably knock out the turn signal switch and extend the dimmer switch.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably make a little sub harness for our cluster.
Makes sense.
But for now, like I mentioned before, it is Father's Day. And family's actually here up at the house waiting for us. So we are going to call it a night for tonight.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day again. That says cruise power. That one needs to be tied off. All right. That's it for tonight. We'll get back to all the stuff I mentioned. I already forgot. All right. We're back with day 3 of what should not have been a 3-day project. Spent a little time this morning kind of cleaning up in here a little bit. Got things a little organized. Hooked up our ground wire here. Tied it up, put some zip ties in. I did go ahead and hook up the turn signal switch. It was just hooking one wire, wire to wire, wasn't that big of a deal. They do give you this column conversion for Ford. The top 4 were correct, the bottom 4 were different. Oh, down here. So I did end up looking up a diagram online and figured out what was what. Not that big of a deal. These 2 wires here would have went to the turn signal switch. Orange is the 3rd brake light wire that's ran to the trunk. Obviously we don't have a 3rd brake light. And this brownish purple colored wire is for hazard lights, which this doesn't have hazard lights. So all that's really left is our instrument cluster. I did run, this is our illumination wire that we ran off of our headlight switch. It's tied into all the existing lights that are in the dash. Have the headlights or the battery disconnected, but there's a light behind this stuff that's honestly kind of dim. There's a light for heater control, there's a light for the clock. Unfortunately the clock doesn't work, but so the dash illumination is working, and then we have our wire here to tie into the illumination for the cluster. The rest of this stuff, 2 of these blue wires are left and right indicator. Green I think is high beam. Pink is fuel sending unit. Red is ignition power. What am I doing here? Red is ignition power. Pink is fuel sending unit. Green is high beam indicator. And then these are left, right indicator. One's oil pressure and one's coolant temp for dummy lights. Excuse me, the coolant temp's a gauge, but we have our aftermarket gauges down here. So I'm probably not going to hook those up. We don't even have sending units out on the engine. So this stuff's all tidied other than making these connections. As far as our instrument cluster goes, I put all our bulbs and stuff in place. This is our fuel gauge. It'll need an ignition source, and then the pink wire will have to hook to the other side. This is coolant temp, again, we're not using. Honestly, I would like to retrofit a tack into there if I can, maybe. And then I've determined with the other dash harness wiring, blue with the red tracer. I know all this has red overspray on it, but blue with the red tracer. So here, here, and then this one on this side, those are all dash illumination. we'll have to tie all those together. And then we got left and right turn signals. These lower ones are a oil light and a generator light that we're not going to use. There's a high beam indicator in here somewhere. So I'm going to take a few minutes, kind of tear all this down and kind of figure out what we need and what we don't. Strip this down to just the minimum, or at least just the required. And then I have one of these kits. It's just a cheap Amazon deal, but comes with these connectors. There's male terminals and female terminals. These are kind of handy for stuff like this that could come in and out of the car. Really cheap. It was maybe 20 bucks, 30 bucks tops. Excuse me. Again, really handy for this kind of stuff, so you don't have to figure out how to get wires apart and all that if you do need to pull the cluster out or have to droop it off to the side. So I'm gonna get a razor knife, side cutters, that kind of stuff, kind of start stripping this down. I'll probably have to look up exactly what's what, so we make sure everything's in order and everything's correct. Then we can get that installed and be done with this thing finally. All right, got all this stuff buttoned up, cleaned up as best I could. The illumination wires were already wired together from the factory, so I just cut out the extra stuff and then taped that up so it wouldn't become a problem. Ran everything into a little switch, minus oil pressure and generator light, which we don't need. So we have turn signal indicators, high beam indicator, fuel gauge, that kind of stuff that we are using. This had a called a constant voltage unit, I think it said online. I don't know if that's correct. Keeps constant voltage for the temp gauge and fuel gauge. But remember, this thing had a generator originally, and we went to an alternator, so I nixed that. I did wire in a ground. All these lights, they just ground through the body. And then the cluster grounds just through the screws that hold it in. So where that was attached, I just ran a ground screw. So this will be grounded to the chassis or the body behind the cluster, or behind the dash. Let's slam this thing in. Well, actually, let's test it real quick. If you want to go around that side. I rigged up just a Milwaukee 12-volt battery hooked to ground. The ground that we added. We should essentially have illumination. Now I'm going to turn that light off. They're really dim. They're not very bright.
Got it.
Okay, and then I don't remember what was what. Left turn signal.
Mm-hmm.
Right turn signal.
Yep.
And then fuel gauge, we obviously can't really test without hooking up ignition and all that stuff. We do have high beam indicator though.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go hook this thing up and see if we can make everything work. Okay. I think that's everything, right?
I think so.
I did hook up extend the dimmer switch, the high-low beam switch. I extended it and then found out that the connector is different. Had to cut this all out and put the original one back in. But so should be able to go be on. We still got the battery hooked up.
Yeah.
So left turn signal indicator, right turn signal indicator. That off. Should have dash lights. They are on. It's very difficult to see though. High beam indicator. What else we got?
The lights across there.
Yeah.
But I think they painted some of those little bezels.
Yeah, you can kind of see the green there. It's hard to see. Yeah. And then that light doesn't help. And apparently this bulb fell out while I was working on stuff. All these lights are really, really dim. Difficult to see. Like, I know this light is working. I know this light is working. But with the other ambient light, you can't really see it. That one's not. I may have knocked that one out too, but your temp light is working, although the gauge doesn't work. So yeah. So other than that, we got wipers, got heater. Should have, if I can do this. There we go. Okay, and then if you look outside, you should have headlights.
Yep.
High beams.
Low beams.
Low beams. And then on the back, we should have brake lights.
They got brake lights.
Cool. I think that's it. Anything else we need to do?
You just gotta put that one piece of plastic back.
Well, I know, but I mean as far as wiring.
Oh, no. I think we got everything.
We got some tidying up to do, that's for sure.
You got everything. I just watched.
And should check. I might have neglected to mention before that I did run a power wire off the ignition switch and ran it down to our voltage gauge, so we have an accurate gauge, since again we don't have a light. It's unfortunate the clock doesn't work.
Yep.
All right, got this thing all back together. Got some vacuuming to do still, but honestly the whole car needs a bath. But all in all, not too bad of a project. It's a little intimidating at first, seeing all those wires, but I've done a few of these now. You gotta separate everything out, and like, for instance, everything goes to the engine compartment. You know, it's a bunch of wires, but you separate it out in the headlights and engine, then it's not as bad. Same with the dash, you separate what's going to the cluster, you know, what's going to the radio, what's going to whatever, and you start breaking it down. It's not that bad. You just got to do a piece at a time. A Ford color-coded harness would have been a little easier. She ordered this. I don't know if this company even makes one. Easy wiring, pretty similar to the painless, and it was actually a little cheaper. I really wanted to go with a American Auto wire, and for this car, an entire wiring harness kit was $1,400. I'm not spending that kind of money on wiring. What was this? $180 something?
Yeah, I think it was $2 with shipping.
Yeah, it's $200 ish with shipping, and of course we bought a couple odds and ends, the Mega Fuse and some little bits and pieces. Like I said, the little connector set that I used for the instrument cluster. You don't have to do it that way. That's the way I did it. All in all, pretty decent kit. Seemed to work out pretty good. I would have loved to do, like I said, the other one. Those ones are really cool. They come with all the sockets, all the terminals, everything. Like every shred of wire in this car would be brand new. Every socket, every terminal, every light, all of it would be brand new. But that's out of my budget. It's not a restoration. It's just the boss lady's grocery getter. So that being said, we do have to go get some groceries. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Thank you for following along. Appreciate it very, very much. And like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff for YouTube algorithm. And I read all your comments. You guys engaging is awesome. Puts a smile on my face that people even care that about what we're doing. So you got anything to add?
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate you guys very much. Man, I'm tired. Can't even say a word. We'll see you guys next time.